I'm amped, baby. It's game week. It's time to get after it, man. It's a whole lot of talk that's been going on for months. Canes have been all-season national champs for years. Now it's time to see if we can do it again this year and get it handled and get it done. And it's a quality team we're going to start out with because UAB is far from a scrub that we can just line up and blow them out and, the fans get all hyped. So it's going to be a nice challenge going into 10 straight ACC games on our way to ACC championship.
Let's start out by focusing on the opponent. UAB, as you mentioned, a Conference USA championship 2 years ago, made it back to the conference championship game last year. They have represented themselves fairly well. I don't want to overstate it against the Power Five. The other day I looked at since they dropped football and had that actually taken away from them more accurately by the Alabama State Legislature in 2015 and 16, came back in 2017 and have played the likes of Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Florida, and have competed typically in the first half, but lost by 3 to 4 touchdowns in those games. Now they've got Miami at Hard Rock. They've got a game under their belts. If you just look at the score, 45-35 over Central Arkansas, a game in which they certainly concentrated on the ground game and pounding it straight forward, only had to put the ball up about 20 times with Tyler Johnson throwing for 143 yards. So what did you gather from the UAB effort the other day?
Well, first off, it was a tale of like two separate halves and kind of just like the ending of the first half. Because Central Arkansas made a late push, but, you kind of were able to see who was the better team for a while there. But when you watch UAB, one of the biggest things that jump off to you is the dynamic ability of their offense. It's very multiple. You're going to get some under the center. You're going to get some shotgun. You're going to get some pistol, but you're also going to get run game out of all three facets. When people think spread, they always think finesse, and they think just airing the ball out. But obviously, Mark just illustrated to you that their quarterback was 17 of 25. Their starter was 17 of 25 for 143. And their backup, who's a little bit more dynamic, was 7 of 9 for 83 yards. So it wasn't something crazy through the air. It's the nice run game that they're bringing to the table. And when you watch this is the third time I've watched the game. And their O-line they don't pull. They're more of kind of zone blocking on the offensive line. The running back figures the hole out. And when he does find it, he hits it. They got a nice staple of running backs. Number 1 and number 4 are both Brown. Spencer Brown, Jermaine Brown. Very good running backs bringing to the table. One in particular, number 1, the true sophomore, 5'8", 175 pounds. Jermaine Brown is the dynamic speed back out of the two. But the balance back is number 4, Spencer Brown, who's a true senior, 6 foot, 220 pounds. So he brings a little bit more of the balance, but he can pull away from you if need be too. Now, he carried the load last week with a lot of carries. I think he had 17 carries. That's a lot of carries for a back. Okay, so we're able to get a lot of film on him, man. And the thing for me, when you look at this, is the biggest key to this game. I talked about their offense. The defense is a little different, running a 2-4-5. A lot of teams don't run that, Mark, a 2-4-5, meaning they have athletic interior, really tall and long off of the edge. 6'6" and 6'7" are their stand-up outside linebackers. Both 250 pounds plus. Guys bringing to the table a nice edge presence. Number 16, Alex Wright, is 6'7", 260. He's their strong side outside linebacker edge player. He's more of the power rusher, how he's coming off the edge, how he likes to set the edge against the run game, going against your right tackle. Their weak side edge rusher is number 22, Jordan Smith, a redshirt junior who's 6'7", 255 pounds. He's more of your finesse player. Likes to, even in the run game, Mark, he's more of the swatting the hands down as opposed to engaging offensive tackles and setting an edge. He likes to disengage immediately because he's not as stout against the run as Alex Wright is. So some people may look at it like I'm going too in-depth for a UAB team, but when you're the Miami Hurricanes, who have lost to La Tech, who have lost to FIU, who, and going into the coaching fraternity that I am going into, man, you got to be detailed, okay? You got to be detailed. Every team deserves respect. Until proven otherwise, as far as on the football field, win or loss, these as young men, these as coaches who And their head coach is a quality head coach also. And they got a pretty solid staff. You know, when Miami played solid staffs last year, it didn't go well for us at all. So when you talk about going over detailed and going into what we're bringing up against the table, man, know thy opponent. Know who's lining up against you. Know what they like to do and how they do it, and what they do well and what you can use against them. And when you talk about UAB as a whole, they had an advantage over us, especially with the tackling issue. This is across all college football, Mark. For years, you watch college football, I don't believe until week 3 or 4 you start to see the tackling get to where it's no problem. I still think week 1, week 2, week 3, it's still little issues. You know, your DBs are still kind of missing tackles by week 3. By week 4, everybody's rolling as far as being able to tackle, taking on hits, holding on to the football. This year is going to be even different because we didn't have spring. So, you know, just having the fumble pickups for defensive players, or holding on to the ball for our offensive players and trying not to get the ball yanked out. You know, they haven't had that motion in a while. So I'm excited about what we can bring to the table. I know for a fact that UAB is going to be a motivated team. They're going to be a team that likes to attack the edges early in downs. When you talk about third down, they like to go across the middle on offense. And third down on defense, they move in number 16, Alex Wright, to defensive tackle. And they do an over front, and they bring one of their edge linebackers, another edge linebacker on. So they like to play with a lot of speed. They can be a little bit multiple as a team with a little bit of power, but both offensively and defensively. You're looking at a team that likes to play speed, likes to use the edges, but they can play some power, strong ball too. So Miami, we got to show up, man, and we got to tackle well. Biggest thing for me as far as the Miami Hurricanes defense versus these UAB offense is going to be defensive tackle and cornerback play. The key to stopping this offense that loves to go to the edges, loves all this eye candy with the motions, with their tight ends, with their running backs, with their slot wide receivers, to really get your linebackers confused. If your defensive tackles get penetration early, it can really stop a lot of what's going on with the eye candy stuff. Because if you can't get the ball off, you're trying to do an ace jet, and your guard just got blown up, and now the wide receiver's running right into the guard. You won't be able to do that too often, but it's doing it on a consistent basis. I don't expect Nestor or Ford or Miller to have their guards blowing up every single time, but getting a nice knockback and playing on the other side of the line of scrimmage, especially what you look for when you have a group of 5 team playing an FCS Power 5 team. You want to be able to see a big difference in the fronts. And as far as their wide receiving core, I can spend 30 minutes talking about these 3 redshirt seniors, JUCO transfers, big, fast, can catch the ball. They high point the ball at its highest point. Cornerback has been a little issue at Miami for a while. So we're going to see how that combats each other. Where I feel comfortable with Miami, defensive ends against their offensive tackles. And I also like our wide receivers against their cornerbacks. So to bring it home, I think Miami's going to do well. I think we're going to have a good game. I think UAB is going to come in and fight early. It's going to take Miami to pull away, because if they hang out in this game, Mark, I'm going to be very angry the next time we see each other, because UAB is going to be very motivated and ready to upset a team because they don't fear Miami. Why? Because of La Tech. Why? Because of Central Michigan. Why? Because of FIU. And until we start to prove those type of things, I don't think any team's going to fear the U recently.
Talking Miami football, we've got the Wholesome One here to take your comments, your questions, your debate topics. I will be checking out the live chat. He's previewing UAB. Of course, the game is coming up in 2 days. We are just about 50 hours away from football at Hard Rock with UAB in town again. 2 consecutive appearances in Conference USA's championship game. And to extend on your point, and this may be even more important this season than in any other offseason leading into week 1, they're experienced, especially in offense, with 10 returning starters. They're only missing 1 starting wide receiver from last year. You mentioned in particular Austin Watkins, a player that totaled over 1,000 yards at wide receiver last year on 57 catches. But all the offensive productivity, for the most part, is back. The 2 Browns in the backfield carry the ball, carry the lumber, and put up 233 yards on the ground against Central Arkansas. One thing of note that you also mentioned in liking Miami's ability to get pressure on the quarterback against their tackles is that UAB had the highest rate of interceptions in the country last year. So to get that straight, they didn't throw the most interceptions, but if you put the interceptions against the pass attempts, they had the highest rate of interceptions. And based on the preview information I've looked at, that was only a partial quarterback issue with Tyler Johnston. He's an experienced kid, wasn't necessarily him. A lot of pressure on him, a lot of forced throws, a lot of tipped passes, something that Miami, with their speed, athleticism, length at defensive end, and ability to put pressure on the quarterback, could take advantage of.
Absolutely, Mark. And to add to what all you have brought to the table, I mean, I think our head coach, Coach Manny Diaz, our offensive coordinator, Coach Rick Lashley, our defensive coordinator, Coach Blake Baker, have all talked about the experience. And it's funny because we had talked about that last time we were on, as far as returning snaps or returning starters, it's kind of can be misleading. But if you have been in a system for as long as a lot of these guys have been in, a couple are JUCO transfers, yes, but at least a full year or two in these same offensive and defensive systems, you usually see an ability where they can play super fast. And that's the biggest difference between players thinking and players knowing. Oh, I know when I see that hand signal, this is exactly what I have to do. I even know what the man next to me has to do. I know what the O-linemen are doing. I know what the QB is thinking because we're reading the same coverage, as a wide receiver, if you're thinking that way. That makes the game a lot easier. And from what I've noticed, I mean, they played two quarterbacks in that game. Okay, and you have seen some Miami ball over the last couple of years. It doesn't work out well when you're playing two quarterbacks. Okay, now, Johnston, the starter, he's a lot more of the can get the job done, won't make a mistake type of person, even though he did against Central Arkansas. The person that gets me a little thrown off is Bryson, number 12, the redshirt freshman. Now, he's a little short at 6'1" as opposed to 6'2", but he is the dynamic player of the two. The offense runs a little faster because he's a little bit more mobile. He's willing to pull those read options. He's willing to not just hand it off to the running back and let him go off, even though the Browns are doing well. He was the one willing to pull it out, step and throw that now route to the slot wide receiver. He was willing to pull it out and throw the seam route to the tight end. So as far as the contrast and how both of them are going to play, that's going to be a factor because I think we're going to see both of these young men. And a lot of teams like to put that on film so that you have to spend time scouting both. And instead of just focusing in and spending, 30 more minutes on the run game, 30 more minutes on the pass game, we're going to have to scout how the offense is ran separately with the two separate quarterbacks, how the offensive coordinator feels comfortable with either one. Because it's not like you're just changing wide receivers. No, they're changing the signal caller, and the team plays different depending on who's on the football field. One of them has a better arm than the other. Johnston has more of the accurate arm, and he can go and put the ball in position. But number 12, Bryson, he likes to just kind of take the chances. He's not as accurate, but he can lob it up and throw it up there and give it a chance deep down the field. And it's not the most accurate when it comes out of his hands. It's very wobbly past 20 yards. But, I mean, we've seen wobbly balls be caught and, be pretty well. But number 12 brings a different dynamic to the offense as opposed to Johnson, the starter, number 17. So, and if there's still a competition between a redshirt junior and a redshirt freshman, in the second game of the season, that can be a little alarming too for what UAB has to bring to the table. So not to talk them up like they're just, going to win a natty, but either way, we're going to respect every team. You don't have to fear anybody, but at least respect them enough to do your diligent research and know what they're bringing to the table so that the team can be successful.